For thousands of years, humanity has looked up at the night sky and seen more than just distant lights. We are about to journey through 25 of history's most profound celestial prophecies, from ancient omens etched in clay to predictions that eerily came true. By the end, you will possess a new understanding of how our ancestors used the stars to navigate not just the seas, but the very course of human destiny. We will explore a Babylonian tablet that predicted the fate of empires and investigate a medieval comet that foretold the fall of a king. How many of these cosmic messages were divine insight, and how many were simply astonishing coincidences? What is the most compelling reason we still search for answers in the stars today? Our journey begins not in a library, but in the sun-baked earth of Mesopotamia with a single cracked clay tablet. This is the Venus tablet of Amasajuka, a record so ancient it was already a relic when the pyramids were young. Created during the reign of King Amasajuka around the 17th century before the Common Era, it is one of the oldest surviving documents of precise astronomical observation. Babylonian scribes, with meticulous care, tracked the movements of the planet Venus over a period of 21 years. They recorded its appearances as the morning star and its disappearances as the evening star with astonishing accuracy. But for them, this was more than just science. It was a direct line to the gods. They believed the celestial dance of the goddess Ishtar, which is Venus, held profound messages for the world below. Each phase of the planet was an omen, a divine signal predicting the fate of the king and his kingdom. If Venus was bright and prominent in a certain part of the sky, it might foretell a great military victory. If it disappeared or appeared dim, the scribes interpreted this as a warning of drought, famine, or the death of a ruler. The tablet itself, discovered in the ruins of the library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh in the 19th century, is a catalogue of these celestial prophecies. It lists the dates and the corresponding predictions in a stark, formulaic language. One entry might state that if the planet rises on a particular date, the harvest will be abundant. Another warns that if it is slow to appear, a powerful enemy will rise in the land. This was the ultimate fusion of astronomy and statecraft. The king's advisors used this cosmic data to guide his decisions, from when to plant crops to when to wage war. They saw the sky as a divine text, and they believed they held the key to reading it. How many empires made their most crucial choices based on the silent, gleaming light of a distant planet? The story of this single tablet reveals a fundamental truth about our ancestors. They looked at the stars and saw a story written just for them. Centuries later and far to the west, another celestial light captivated the ancient world and forever altered the course of history. The Star of Bethlehem, as described in the Gospel of Matthew, guided wise men from the east to the birthplace of Jesus. This was not an omen of a king's fall, but a herald of a king's birth, a prophecy of hope that continues to resonate through 2 millennia. What could this star have actually been? Modern astronomy offers several compelling theories, each trying to solve this ancient puzzle. One of the strongest contenders is a rare planetary conjunction. In the year 7 before the Common Era, the gas giants Jupiter and Saturn appeared to meet in the constellation Pisces not just once, but 3 times over the course of several months. To the Magi, who are likely skilled astrologers and astronomers themselves, this would have been a spectacular and deeply symbolic event. Jupiter was often seen as the kingly planet, while Saturn was a symbol of protection, and Pisces was associated with the lands of the West, including Judea. The triple convergence of these celestial bodies could have been interpreted as a powerful sign, a cosmic announcement of a new and divine king rising in the West. Another possibility is a comet. Ancient records from both China and Rome note the appearance of a brilliant comet around the year 5 before the Common Era. Comets have long been viewed as portents of great change, sudden and unexpected visitors that blaze across the sky. A bright, long-tailed comet would certainly fit the description of a new star that moved across the heavens, leading the way for the travelers. Then there is the theory of a supernova, a stellar explosion so violent it can outshine an entire galaxy for a brief period. A new, fixed point of intense light appearing in the night sky would have been utterly shocking and impossible to ignore, a true star where none existed before. Yet, despite all our scientific scrutiny, the true nature of the Star of Bethlehem remains one of Christianity's greatest enduring mysteries. Theologians see it as a miraculous sign, a divine beacon placed in the sky for a singular purpose. Astronomers see a fascinating cold case, a chance to match historical records with celestial mechanics. This fusion of faith and science, of prophecy and observation, gives the story its timeless power. It stands as a testament to a fundamental human desire to find meaning and guidance in the vast, silent expanse above us. From the hopeful star over Bethlehem, we travel forward to the shadowy world of a 16th-century French apothecary. Michel de Nostradamus, known to history as Nostradamus, composed his book of prophecies not by observing a single star, but by consulting the entire cosmic clockwork of astrology. His cryptic quatrains, written in a mix of French, Latin, and Greek, were dense with allegory and veiled references, and their foundation was the precise alignment of the planets. He would cast horoscopes, calculating the positions of celestial bodies for specific moments, believing these configurations revealed the tide of future events. This was not simple stargazing. It was a complex system where Mars could signify war and Jupiter could indicate a king, their celestial dance mapping out conflicts and rises to power on Earth. One of his most debated prophecies is the quatrain often linked to the year 1999. It speaks of a great king of terror descending from the sky in the 7th month, a line that has spawned endless speculation. Many interpreters connected this to a grand celestial event, a fearsome alignment or a solar eclipse that would precede a cataclysm. When July, the 7th month of 1999, passed without global disaster, the prophecy was largely dismissed as another misinterpretation. Yet, the debate over its true meaning continues. Was Nostradamus describing a literal astronomical phenomenon, or was the king of terror a metaphor for a specific leader or a technological terror like nuclear warfare? This is the central puzzle of Nostradamus. His verses are so ambiguous they can be bent to fit countless historical events after they have already happened. Supporters point to quatrains they believe foretold the rise of Adolf Hitler, the death of King Henry II of France, and even the September 11th attacks, finding in his cryptic language allusions to names, dates, and celestial signs. Skeptics argue this is simply the result of selective thinking and creative translation, a self-fulfilling prophecy where we search for patterns in his vague poetry until we find a match. The true power of Nostradamus may not lie in any proven accuracy, but in the enduring human desire to find order in chaos, to believe that the motions of the planets might somehow chart the turbulent course of our own history. While Nostradamus looked to the planets, another ancient civilization sought prophecies not in the open sky, but in the secret language of fire and bone. In the royal courts of the Shang dynasty over 3,000 years ago, kings consulted the ultimate advisors, their own ancestors, through a practice known as scapulomancy. The process was both a science and a sacred ritual. A diviner, often the king himself, would take a cleaned animal bone, usually the shoulder blade of an ox or the plastron of a turtle. They would carve a series of shallow hollows into the back of the bone and then apply a hot bronze pin to one of these points. The intense heat would cause the bone to crack on the other side with a sharp pop. But these were not random fractures. The shape, the direction, and the length of the cracks were believed to be the direct written response from the spirit world, a celestial prophecy delivered through the medium of cracked bone. The diviner would then interpret these patterns to answer critical questions of state. Should the king launch a military campaign next season? Would the harvest be plentiful? Was a coming solar eclipse a sign of divine displeasure? The question itself was often carved into the bone beforehand, and sometimes the verified outcome was added later, creating a permanent record of the prophecy and its fulfillment. Many of these oracle bones directly reference celestial events. One famous example questions whether a recent eclipse was an omen of coming disaster. Another might ask if the appearance of a new star, likely a supernova or comet, signified the approval of the ancestral spirits for a new temple. This was astronomy deeply intertwined with the divine. The Shang people believed that their ancestors resided in the heavens among the stars, possessing the power to influence worldly events and communicate through the signs in the sky. By reading the cracks in the bone, the king was essentially translating the will of the cosmos. The answers he received dictated everything from agricultural policy to royal succession, making scapulomancy the very foundation of Shang statecraft. These fragile bones, buried for millennia, are now our most direct link to the dawn of Chinese civilization. They show us a world where the boundary between the earthly and the celestial was paper-thin, and where the crackle of a burning bone could determine the fate of a dynasty. Deep within the vaults of a European library lies a book that survived the fires of the Spanish conquest. The Dresden Codex, a fragile Mayan text from the 11th or 12th century, is perhaps the most sophisticated astronomical manual of the ancient Americas. Its pages, painted in vivid red and black on bark paper, contain secrets that reveal a civilization completely in tune with the rhythms of the cosmos. At its heart are the Venus tables, a breathtakingly accurate chart of the planet's 584-day cycle. For the Maya, Venus was not a benevolent goddess but a dangerous, warlike entity. They called it Chak Ek, the Great Star, and its appearances and disappearances were carefully monitored to dictate the timing of sacred ceremonies and, most importantly, warfare. The Codex provided a precise calendar, allowing priests to predict exactly when Venus would rise as the morning star. This was the celestial signal to launch raids, believing the planet's influence would grant them victory. But their celestial knowledge went far beyond a single planet. The same codex contains intricate tables for predicting solar and lunar eclipses, mapping the complex cycles of the moon with a precision that rivals modern calculations. They viewed eclipses as moments of cosmic imbalance when the sun or moon was being bitten by a celestial monster, and their ability to forecast these events gave the priesthood immense power. This deep understanding of time culminated in their long count calendar, a vast cycle of roughly 5,125 years. When this cycle ended on December 21, 2012, many in the modern world misinterpreted this reset as a prophecy of global apocalypse. The Maya themselves, however, saw it not as an end but as a transition, the closing of one great age and the hopeful beginning of the next. Their true prophecy was not one of doom, but of cyclical renewal, a testament to their belief that the cosmos moved in perfect, predictable, and eternal circles. Rome's own celestial prophecies were not written in the stars alone, but locked away in a set of sacred books guarded with the empire's highest security. The legendary Sibylline books began with a strange encounter between a Roman king and a mysterious old woman. As the story goes, the Sibyl of Cumae approached King Tarquin the Proud with 9 books of prophecy, offering to sell them for an exorbitant price. When the king refused, she burned 3 of them and offered the remaining 6 for the same original sum. He laughed and refused again. She burned 3 more and presented the final 3, still demanding the full initial price. This time, his curiosity overpowered his pride. Tarquin the Proud paid the original fortune for the 3 surviving books. These texts were immediately recognized as divine and were stored in a vault beneath the Temple of Jupiter on Capitoline Hill, to be consulted only by a special college of priests at the direct command of the Roman Senate. They were not read for entertainment or simple curiosity. The books were Rome's emergency manual, opened only when the state faced its gravest crises, a plague, a shocking military loss, or terrifying celestial sign. The priests would search the ancient Greek verses for instructions on how to appease the gods, often prescribing new religious rituals or the construction of a temple to a specific deity. One of the most dramatic consultations occurred during the Second Punic War, when the brilliant Carthaginian general Hannibal brought the Roman Republic to the brink of annihilation. After his devastating victory at the Battle of Cannae, the city was gripped with panic and mourning. The sky itself seemed to turn against Rome, with reports of multiple suns appearing in the heavens, a phenomenon we now understand as a complex atmospheric mirage. The Senate, desperate for any guidance, ordered the priests to consult the Sibylline books. The prophecies they found spoke of a great foreign invader and prescribed a radical and gruesome solution to secure divine favor: the live burial of 2 Gauls and 2 Greeks in the city's marketplace, a human sacrifice meant to purify the land. This horrific act, carried out in the Forum, was believed to have shifted the celestial balance. More positively, the books were also consulted after a series of lightning strikes on public statues, which were seen as a terrible omen. The prophecies advised introducing the worship of the healing god Asclepius to Rome. The Senate sent a delegation to Epidaurus, the god's chief sanctuary, and they returned with a sacred serpent, a symbol of Asclepius. As the serpent slithered from their ship onto an island in the Tiber River, a temple was erected there, and a devastating plague that had gripped the city soon lifted. For centuries, the original Sibylline books were Rome's most secret weapon, a direct line to divine will that could be activated by a strange light in the sky or a sudden disaster. Their power lasted until the very temple that housed them was destroyed in a great fire, consuming the prophecies in flames, just as the Sibyl herself had begun their story. A brilliant, hairy star blazed over England in the spring of 1066. Across the continent, people looked up in awe and terror at the unmoving streak of light, its tail stretching like a silvery accusation across the night sky. This was Halley's comet, making its regular 76-year swing around the sun, but its timing could not have been more profound. In the embroidered narrative of the Bayeux Tapestry, we see this moment frozen in time. A group of anxious Englishmen point upward at the strange sight, their faces etched with fear. The Latin inscription beside them reads simply, "They are in awe of the star." But this was more than just wonder. In an age where the heavens were a direct reflection of earthly power, a comet was almost universally seen as a portent of upheaval, a divine eraser of old regimes. For King Harold II, recently crowned and facing a rival claim to his throne from William, the Duke of Normandy, the comet was a public relations disaster. His supporters would have seen it as a terrible sign of divine displeasure, a celestial judgment on his rule. For William, watching from across the Channel, the same star was a heavenly endorsement of his impending invasion. It was a cosmic signal that the old order was crumbling and that he was destined to become the new king. The comet's appearance became a pivotal piece of propaganda in the lead up to the Norman conquest. When William's forces landed and met Harold's army at the Battle of Hastings later that year, the comet's prophecy was seemingly fulfilled. Harold fell on the field and William seized the English crown. The tapestry, commissioned by William's half-brother to celebrate the Norman victory, immortalizes the comet precisely because it was seen as the celestial trigger for this world-changing event. The cultural shockwave from this single celestial body rippled far beyond the English Channel. Chronicles from Byzantium to Ireland recorded the comet's passage, often linking it to wars, plagues, and the deaths of kings. It cemented in the medieval mind a direct and terrifying link between the movements of the cosmos and the fate of nations. How many soldiers at Hastings on both sides fought with the image of that hairy star burning in their minds, convinced they were acting out a drama written in the heavens? This was not a prophecy whispered in a secret book, but a brilliant, undeniable sign visible to every soul in Europe, a public omen that truly did foretell the fall of a king and the birth of a New England. While comets foretold the fall of kings, a Renaissance maverick saw the stars mirrored in the human body itself. The physician and alchemist Paracelsus roamed 16th century Europe, a stormy figure who rejected ancient medical dogma and famously burned the classical texts of Galen in a public bonfire. He championed a radical new idea that the body was a microcosm of the cosmos, a small, complete reflection of the vast universe. In his view, every planet governed a specific organ. The sun ruled the heart, the moon the brain, and Saturn controlled the spleen. An alignment of planets was not just a celestial event, it was a direct prescription for health or disease, influencing the balance of the body's fundamental elements. This was celestial prophecy on a deeply personal scale. He believed that by reading the stars, a physician could predict the onset of plague, diagnose an illness, or determine the most auspicious moment to prepare a life-saving remedy. His celestial observations also led him to make startlingly specific predictions about the future. He wrote of a time of great catastrophe, a great war that would come from the skies, a description that some later interpreters have linked to aerial warfare. He also prophesied a period he called the Great Monarchy, a golden age of discovery and enlightenment that would follow the turmoil. Paracelsus even foretold that doctors would one day learn to transplant organs from one person to another, a notion that would have seemed pure magic in his own time. His work represents a pivotal moment where celestial prophecy began to shift from pure statecraft and religion toward a more scientific, albeit still mystical, understanding of the world. He looked at the stars and saw not just the fate of empires, but the very blueprint for human life and the future of medicine itself. How many of his seemingly outlandish ideas were simply visions of a world not yet ready for them? The skies over Rome in 44 before the Common Era seemed to be screaming a warning that nobody could fully decipher. In the weeks leading up to the Ides of March, a cascade of bizarre celestial and terrestrial signs was reported, creating an atmosphere of palpable dread. The historian Plutarch records that spontaneous fires appeared in the hands of soldiers, and the night was lit by strange, unidentifiable lights in the heavens. Most chillingly, the sacrificial animals offered for Caesar's safety were found to have no hearts, a defect the augurs interpreted as the ultimate omen of death, for without a heart the offering could not reach the gods. Even Caesar's own wife, Calpurnia, was haunted by nightmares, dreaming that the pediment of their house had collapsed and that she held her murdered husband in her arms. For a Roman, these were not mere superstitions. They were a critical part of the state religion, a divine data stream that, if correctly interpreted, could reveal the will of the gods. The flight patterns of birds, the entrails of sacrifices, and the appearance of comets were all pieces of a cosmic puzzle. Yet, despite this flood of warnings, Caesar famously dismissed the soothsayer who told him to beware the Ides of March. He walked directly into the Senate meeting on that fateful day where the conspirators' daggers were waiting. In the aftermath of the assassination, a comet appeared in the sky during the games held in his honor. The Romans, ever ready to read the heavens, immediately named it the Julian star, interpreting its sudden blaze not as a final omen of doom, but as proof that Caesar's soul had been accepted among the gods. This single event encapsulates the Roman relationship with prophecy. The same celestial signs that foretold a mortal's catastrophic fall were later reinterpreted to sanctify his eternal ascent. The message of the stars was not fixed but fluid, changing to serve the needs of the living who were left to decipher their silent, brilliant code. Centuries later and far to the east, the destiny of a great city was written not on parchment, but in the silent, predictable movements of the stars. In the year 969, the armies of the Fatimid Caliphate, a powerful Ismaili Shia dynasty, swept into Egypt. Their general, Johar al-Sakili, carried with him a command that went far beyond mere conquest. He was to found a new royal city, a capital that would eclipse all others and stand as an eternal testament to their rule. But this was not a task to be rushed. Before a single stone could be laid, the caliph's court astronomers were consulted. They were masters of a sophisticated celestial science, and they pored over their charts and astrolabes, calculating the precise alignment of the planets. They were searching for the one perfect, auspicious moment when the celestial forces were in absolute harmony. This was the practice of electional astrology, the belief that launching a monumental endeavor under the right stars would guarantee its success and longevity. The moment they chose was dictated by the position of Mars, the planet associated with war and foundations, and Jupiter, the bringer of fortune and expansion. When these celestial powers were favorably aligned, the signal was given. On that specific day, a rope was stretched across the desert to mark the city's boundaries. Then, as the astronomers confirmed the stars had reached their destined positions, bells were rung. It was at that exact second, under a sky deemed perfectly propitious, that the foundation stone for the city of Al-Qahira, the victorious, was set in place. We know it today as Cairo. The Fatimids believed this celestial timing was a divine contract. A city born under a harmonious sky would itself be harmonious, blessed with prosperity, impregnable to its enemies, and destined to grant a long and stable reign to its rulers. For centuries, Cairo stood as the glorious heart of the Islamic world, a thriving center of culture and learning, its very existence a testament to that long-ago prophecy written in the stars. It makes you wonder how many of the world's great cities owe their enduring spirit not just to the strength of their walls, but to the specific celestial moment of their birth. A brilliant new star erupted in the heavens on the 4th of July, 1054. For 23 consecutive days, it was so luminous it could be seen even in broad daylight, a fixed point of fire outshining every other object in the sky except the sun and moon. Chinese court astronomers, meticulous in their record-keeping, called it a guest star, noting its position near the constellation Taurus with a sense of profound significance. They watched it remain visible to the naked eye for nearly 2 full years before it finally faded from view. This was no comet passing through, it was a supernova, the catastrophic death of a massive star, and its light was a cosmic event of staggering power. In the imperial court of the Song dynasty, such a celestial phenomenon was never just a scientific curiosity. It was a direct message from the heavens, a prophecy that demanded interpretation. The court astrologers, whose role was to read the will of the cosmos for the emperor, saw this blazing guest as a clear omen of change. The brilliant, sudden appearance of a new star in a specific astrological mansion was often linked to the fate of the ruler. Historical records strongly suggest they interpreted this event as a sign of impending death for the emperor and a shift in the dynastic cycle. The timing was indeed poignant. Emperor Renzong, who had ruled for decades, was in his final years, and the supernova's appearance was seen as a celestial confirmation of the coming transition of power. It signaled a time of potential instability, a warning to the court to prepare for a new era. Half a world away, Arab astronomers in the Islamic world also documented the star with clinical precision. Some scholars suggest that Native American rock art in the American Southwest may even depict the event, showing a crescent moon positioned startlingly close to a large star, matching the recorded position of the supernova near the moon at that time. This was a prophecy witnessed across continents, yet its meaning was shaped by the eyes of the beholder. Today, we know the remnants of that cataclysm as the Crab Nebula, a vast, expanding cloud of gas and dust still rushing outward from that ancient explosion. At its heart spins a pulsar, the dense, rapidly rotating corpse of the original star. The light that foretold an emperor's death 1,000 years ago was the birth cry of a new cosmic structure, a reminder that in the grand cycle of the universe, an end in one realm is always a beginning in another. The shadowy woods of 16th century England held their own kind of prophet, a woman whose words were said to be as twisted as the petrifying well near her home. Her name was Ursula Southdale, but history remembers her as Mother Shipton. She was a figure of local legend, a soothsayer who delivered her dark visions in simple, rhyming couplets that were easy to remember and even easier to fear. Unlike the court astrologers of other lands, her prophecies sprang from the English countryside, yet they reached for the stars, describing celestial chaos that would precede the world's end. She spoke of a time when carriages would move without horses, a clear premonition of the automobile and of iron ships sailing beneath the sea, but her most chilling verses were reserved for the sky itself. She prophesied that the world would end when a series of great lights appeared in the heavens, a celestial spectacle followed by the seas turning black and the tides refusing to obey the moon. For generations, these rhymes were passed down as curious folklore. Then, in 1666, a catastrophe struck that made the entire nation remember Mother Shipton's words. The Great Fire of London consumed the city, a raging inferno that lit up the night sky for days with a terrifying orange glow that could be seen for miles. To the terrified citizens watching their world burn, these were the great lights in the sky she had foretold. The fire was followed by a devastating outbreak of plague, which many saw as the turning of the tides and the blackening of the waters. In that moment of panic and destruction, a local prophecy became a national obsession. People scrambled to find copies of her verses, convinced that an illiterate woman from Knaresborough had foreseen the downfall of their capital. Of course, the world did not end with the fire of London. The prophecies, like those of Nostradamus, were vague enough to be reapplied to new disasters, from later comets to modern fears of environmental collapse. The true mystery of Mother Shipton is not whether she could see the future, but why we are so willing to bend the past to fit the predictions of a mysterious voice from the woods, searching for a pattern in the chaos of our own history. High above the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, the fate of the entire world rested on a single, fragile point of light. Every 52 years, as their complex calendar cycles completed a full rotation, the Aztec people faced the terrifying possibility of total extinction. This was the end of a calendar round, a period they believed the sun and the world itself could perish, plunging humanity into eternal darkness. The only thing standing between them and oblivion was a single, perfect celestial alignment and the priests who knew how to beg for its continuation. The entire empire held its breath for the new fire ceremony. In the days leading up to the event, a profound and terrifying silence fell over the city. Households extinguished every hearth and cooking fire. People cast their idols and precious possessions into the lake, a symbolic cleansing of their entire world. The world was, for all intents and purposes, being prepared for its end. All eyes then turned to the hill of Huaxtitlan, where a team of priests, bearing the immense weight of all creation, embarked on their sacred duty. Their gaze was fixed on a specific cluster of stars, the Pleiades. They had to witness this star group, which they called the fire drill, pass directly through the zenith, the highest point in the night sky. This precise celestial movement was the signal that the world was granted another 52 years of life. Can you imagine the pressure on those priests as they stared into the clear night, praying for the stars to appear? The entire population waited in the darkness below, knowing that if the priests failed to see the Pleiades complete their passage, it was all over. The gods would withdraw their support, and the stars would become monsters called Tzimim, descending from the sky to devour all of humanity. If the ceremony succeeded, the relief was immediate and ecstatic. The high priest would kindle a new fire on the chest of a sacrificial victim, a heart torn out to feed the sun and ensure its strength. Runners would then carry this precious, world-renewing flame in torches to every corner of the empire, relighting the hearth of every home and every temple. But the unspoken question must have haunted every ceremony. What if the night was cloudy? What if a simple bank of fog obscured the crucial stars? For the Aztecs, there was no astronomical certainty, only faith. A single overcast night could have meant the end of everything they knew, a prophecy of absolute doom written not in a book but in the silent, impassive face of the night sky. The gears of prophecy were not always hidden in secret books or whispered by priests. In the heart of medieval Europe, they turned publicly for all to see, powered by intricate clockwork and celestial ambition. High on the facade of the old town hall in Prague, the astronomical clock, built in the early 15th century, is far more than a timepiece. Its face is a complex map of the heavens, a whirling model of the universe as they understood it. One dial shows the 24-hour day, while another tracks the 12 signs of the zodiac. A central mechanism displays the positions of the sun and moon as they move through the sky, even showing the moon's current phase. For the common citizen looking up, this was a direct line to the cosmos. They could see which planetary house the sun was in and consult their almanacs to understand what that meant for their daily lives. Should a farmer plant his crops today under the influence of Venus or wait for a more auspicious alignment with Jupiter? Was this a good day to travel, to marry, or to begin a new business venture? The clock translated the silent movements of the planets into practical, prophetic guidance for an entire city. A similar marvel, the Strasbourg Cathedral clock, took this celestial theater to even greater heights. Its elaborate automata included a procession of the 7-day planets, each associated with a god from classical mythology, marking the passage of the week. A mechanical rooster would crow at noon, a symbol of Christ's prophecy of Peter's denial, blending Christian faith with ancient cosmic belief. For the rulers who commissioned these monumental machines, their function was deeply political. A prince who could display his mastery over time and the heavens on a public stage was a ruler whose power seemed divinely ordained, synchronized with the very clockwork of the universe. The accurate prediction of eclipses and planetary movements by his clock was not just a scientific feat, it was a form of state propaganda, proving his connection to celestial forces beyond the understanding of ordinary men. These clocks were the internet of their age, a public database of celestial data that everyone could access but only the powerful could truly command. They stand as breathtaking monuments to a time when the boundary between astronomy and astrology was invisible, and the turning of a gear could reveal the turning of fate itself. While clocks measured fate in Prague, a far more dramatic celestial messenger was already blazing a path for one of history's most ambitious and disastrous campaigns. The Great Comet of 1811 was a sight that transfixed the world, its brilliant nucleus and vast, sweeping tail dominating the night sky for an astonishing 260 days. As it hung like a silent, burning scimitar over Europe, nations embroiled in the Napoleonic Wars scrambled to decipher its meaning. For the French Empire, it was a sign of divine favor, a cosmic torch lighting the way to glory. For the nations standing against Napoleon, it was an omen of his impending hubris and fall. This celestial body became a powerful tool of propaganda, its interpretation shifting with every border it crossed. Napoleon's own advisors likely encouraged the view that the comet was a herald of his greatness, a symbol of the new order he was bringing to the continent. Its unprecedented longevity was seen not as a warning, but as a testament to the enduring power of his reign. Yet, when he launched his massive invasion of Russia later that year, the comet's prophecy took on a darker, more ambiguous tone. The campaign itself seemed to mirror the comet's journey, beginning with a brilliant, seemingly unstoppable advance, only to end in the frozen, desolate retreat from Moscow. The sheer scale of the disaster, with the Grand Army decimated by the Russian winter, seemed to fulfill the worst fears of those who had seen the comet as a portent of doom. In the aftermath, the comet was retroactively seen as having foretold the turning point in Napoleon's fortunes, a celestial marker for the beginning of his decline. Its light had illuminated not the path to victory, but the road to ruin. How many of his soldiers marching eastward looked up at that same silent, fiery star and wondered if it was a beacon of hope or a funeral pyre burning in the sky? The Great Comet of 1811 demonstrates the ultimate flexibility of celestial prophecy, a single, neutral event in the heavens that was molded by human fear and ambition into a story of either triumph or catastrophe. The same comet that haunted Napoleon seemed to promise a future written in the stars, but one of the most profound celestial mysteries was already ancient, guarded by a people living in the remote cliffs of Mali. The Dogon tribe's understanding of the cosmos presents a puzzle that defies easy explanation. For centuries, their creation myths have spoken of a tiny, dense star they call Potolo, which orbits the brilliant Sirius every 50 years. They describe it as the smallest and heaviest thing in the universe, made of a metal heavier than iron, a star that spins on its axis. This is a startlingly accurate description of Sirius B, a white dwarf star that is completely invisible to the naked eye. Modern astronomy only confirmed its existence in the 19th century, and its immense density and 50-year orbital period were verified much later. Yet the Dogon people knew. Their oral traditions, passed down through generations of elders, detail this binary system with precision that seems to have arrived from another world. Their own explanation for this knowledge is even more extraordinary. They say it was given to them by visitors they call the Nomo, amphibious, fish-like beings who arrived from the Sirius system in a great arc that spun on its axis as it descended. These beings, described as teachers and civilizers, are central to the Dogon creation story, credited with bringing not only astronomical wisdom but the very foundations of their society. The debate surrounding this knowledge is as intense as the African sun. Some anthropologists suggest the Dogon could have acquired this information from Western travelers or missionaries in the 1920s or 30s, who might have shared the then recent astronomical discovery. Others fiercely contest this, pointing to the deep integration of Sirius B into the tribe's most sacred rituals and their long-standing pre-colonial cosmological maps. The very grain stores in their homes are sometimes arranged to mirror the orbital dance of Sirius and its invisible companion. Is it possible that an isolated culture developed such a sophisticated understanding of a hidden star system entirely on its own? Or does their lore preserve a genuine, ancient encounter, a celestial prophecy not of what would happen, but of what already was, written in the stars and delivered by star-born teachers? The Dogon mystery forces us to ask where the line between myth and memory truly lies. A strange, triple sunrise broke over the English countryside on the 2nd of February, 1461. For Edward, Earl of March, the morning of the Battle of Mortimer's Cross began with a celestial puzzle that could decide his fate before a single sword was drawn. The young commander, fighting to claim the throne for the House of York, looked up to see not one sun, but 3 brilliant orbs glowing in the cold winter sky. 2 shimmering, ghostly replicas flanked the real sun, forming a radiant, terrifying trinity of light. To his superstitious soldiers, this was a sign of cosmic chaos, a bad omen that the natural order was breaking apart. Panic began to ripple through the ranks, but Edward was a master of morale and medieval public relations. He immediately declared the phenomenon was not a warning, but a divine prophecy of his own victory. He interpreted the 3 suns as a representation of the Holy Trinity, a clear sign of God's blessing. More practically, he proclaimed they symbolized the 3 sons of the Duke of York, himself and his 2 brothers, united and destined to triumph. Emboldened by this celestial endorsement, his army fought with renewed conviction and won a decisive victory. Edward would later ascend to the throne as King Edward IV, and he adopted the symbol of the sun in splendor as his personal badge, a permanent reminder of the day the sky itself seemed to anoint him king. This atmospheric illusion is known as a parhelion or sun dog, created when sunlight refracts through millions of perfectly aligned plate-shaped ice crystals suspended high in the atmosphere. They are a beautiful trick of physics, but for our ancestors, they were a direct message. Across the globe and throughout history, similar displays were recorded and interpreted with awe. Roman histories note their appearance before the death of a Caesar. In medieval Scandinavia, they were seen as a sign of the god Odin. In every case, the same natural phenomenon was molded to fit the fears and hopes of the people who witnessed it, proving that the most powerful prophecies are often the ones we choose to see written in the light. The sky itself seemed to turn against humanity in the year 1816. Across the northeastern United States and throughout Western Europe, summer never arrived. In June and July, farmers watched in horror as snowstorms blanketed their newly planted fields. Frosts killed crops from New England to the Swiss Alps, and relentless cold rains drowned any remaining hope of a harvest. The skies were perpetually gloomy, tinged with strange, vivid hues of orange and purple at dusk, colors born not of sunset but of a distant, invisible cataclysm. This was the year without a summer, and for the terrified populations living through it, the only logical explanation was a celestial prophecy of biblical doom. The true cause, however, lay half a world away on a remote Indonesian island. The colossal eruption of Mount Tambora in April 1815 was the most powerful volcanic event in recorded human history. It blasted cubic miles of rock, dust, and sulfurous gas high into the stratosphere, creating a vast aerosol veil that slowly encircled the entire globe. This thin, high cloud acted like a cosmic shade, filtering and scattering sunlight for months on end, and plunging the planet into a volcanic winter. But for those without satellites or global communication, the connection was invisible. They only saw the effects: the unseasonable cold, the failed harvests, the eerie, dimmed sun. It felt exactly like the end times prophecies from the Book of Revelation, which spoke of the sun being darkened and the moon turning to blood. Preachers stood on street corners and in pulpits, declaring that the strange skies were a divine judgment, a final warning before the apocalypse. Social unrest exploded as food prices skyrocketed. Riots broke out in European cities, and desperate families abandoned their farms to wander the countryside in search of sustenance. In this atmosphere of fear and superstition, ordinary celestial events took on terrifying new meanings. A simple lunar eclipse was no longer a predictable astronomical event. It was another sign of God's wrath. The persistent, beautiful but sinister sunsets became a daily reminder of impending doom. This global crisis, born from a single geological event, demonstrates the immense power of celestial prophecy, even when the prophecy is a misinterpretation. People looked at the ash-filtered sky and saw a message of divine anger, when in reality, they were witnessing the long-distance consequences of a planet in turmoil. It was a prophecy written not in the stars, but by the earth itself, a stark reminder that our world is connected in ways our ancestors could scarcely comprehend. A new star blazed over Europe in November 1572, and it terrified the establishment. For the young Danish nobleman Tycho Brahe, its appearance was not a source of fear but a calling. This supernova, shining brighter than Venus in the constellation Cassiopeia, was a direct challenge to the ancient wisdom of Aristotle, which held that the heavens beyond the moon were perfect and eternally unchanged. Yet here was a star born from nothing, visible for 18 months, proving the cosmos was alive with creation and destruction. Brahe, with a meticulous eye and a suite of custom-built instruments of unprecedented accuracy, measured its position night after night. He proved this was no atmospheric phenomenon, but a true stellar event, a crack in the very foundation of classical cosmology. His detailed book on the new star made him famous across the continent and earned him the patronage of the Danish king, who gifted him the entire island of Hven. There, Brahe built Uraniborg, a palace of astronomy, and for over 20 years, he and his team compiled the most precise and comprehensive set of naked-eye astronomical observations ever recorded. Every night, they mapped the positions of the planets with an accuracy that was simply unrivaled, creating a treasure trove of celestial data. These were not just numbers on a page, they were the raw material for prophecy. The old order of the heavens was collapsing, and philosophers and theologians began to whisper that the same fate might await the old orders on Earth. If the immutable stars could change, then surely kings and empires were not so secure either. Brahe himself never fully abandoned a geocentric model of the universe, but the data he so carefully gathered would become the key for his brilliant assistant Johannes Kepler. After Brahe's death, Kepler inherited those decades of observations, particularly the intricate records of Mars. It was this legacy of precision that allowed Kepler to deduce his 3 laws of planetary motion, finally proving the planets moved in ellipses around the Sun. The supernova of 1572 was a prophecy of cosmic change, and Tycho Brahe was the man who documented its light, setting in motion a scientific revolution that would ultimately rewrite humanity's place in the universe. The Magi who followed the star were not just anonymous wise men, but likely priests of an ancient Persian faith called Zoroastrianism. This religion, one of the world's oldest, held its own profound prophecies of a coming savior, a figure known as the Shipton. Their sacred texts describe how this world redeemer would be born of a virgin, and that his arrival would be heralded by an unmistakable celestial sign, a great light appearing in the heavens. For the Zoroastrian astrologer priests, watching the sky was a sacred duty, a way of monitoring the cosmic struggle between good and evil. A new, brilliant star would have been interpreted as the ultimate signal that their long-awaited savior was entering the world. This adds a breathtaking layer to the mystery of the Star of Bethlehem. The Gospel of Matthew tells us the Magi came from the east, and Persia lies directly to the east of Judea. Their journey suddenly appears not as a random trip but as a deliberate pilgrimage. These were men acting on their own ancient prophecies, traveling to find a king whose birth their own traditions had foretold. The convergence is staggering. 2 separate, deeply rooted faiths, one in Persia and one in Judea, both watching the same sky and both anticipating a messianic figure signaled by a celestial event. Could the Star of Bethlehem have been a single astronomical phenomenon that fulfilled 2 independent prophetic traditions at once? The Zoroastrian connection transforms the story from a singular Christian miracle into a cross-cultural mystery, suggesting the heavens were speaking a universal language that different cultures were desperately trying to decipher. A crimson moon hangs in the night sky, a sight that has stirred dread and prophecy for millennia. In the ancient book of Joel, a passage declares the sun will turn to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord arrives. This powerful imagery has anchored a modern phenomenon, the belief that a specific sequence of 4 total lunar eclipses, known as a tetrad, is a direct celestial warning of world-changing events. When the moon passes completely into Earth's shadow, sunlight filtering through our planet's atmosphere casts a coppery red glow upon the lunar surface. This beautiful trick of physics, a blood moon, becomes a canvas for prophecy. The pattern gained immense traction in recent years, with preachers and authors noting that tetrads in 1949 and 1950, then again in 1967 and 1968, coincided with the founding of the modern state of Israel and the Six-Day War. For believers, this was no coincidence. It was a divine signal written in the sky, a celestial clock ticking toward a biblically prophesied end. The most recent tetrad, occurring in 2014 and 2015, sparked a new wave of predictions, linking the blood moons to everything from global economic collapse to a major shift in world power. Yet, these prophecies consistently passed without the predicted apocalyptic events. The scientific reality is both simpler and more magnificent. Tetrads are not exceptionally rare. They occur in cycles, with periods of frequent tetrads alternating with periods of none at all for centuries. The gravitational dance between the Earth and Moon creates these predictable patterns, a celestial rhythm entirely disconnected from human affairs, So why does this connection remain so compelling? The blood moon tetrad offers a powerful narrative, transforming random historical events into a predetermined divine plan. It provides a framework for understanding a chaotic world, suggesting that even our most tumultuous times are part of a larger cosmic story. The moon turns red not as a warning, but as a breathtaking display of orbital mechanics, yet we cannot help but look up and see our own reflection in its fiery glow. A deep, rolling thunder shattered the silence of a remote Siberian morning on June 30th, 1908. A man seated on the front porch of a trading post many miles away was thrown from his chair by the force of the shockwave. The sky itself seemed to split open. What witnesses described was a colossal fireball, brighter than the sun, streaking across the heavens before vanishing in a flash of unbearable light and a series of deafening blasts. When scientists finally reached the remote Podkamennaya Tunguska River basin years later, the scale of the devastation was almost beyond comprehension. 80 million trees lay flattened, their trunks pointing radially outward from a central point, as if a giant hand had smashed down from the sky, yet there was no crater. This was the Tunguska event, the largest impact event in recorded human history, and its utter mystery made it a blank slate for prophecy. The scientific consensus points to the airburst of a stony meteoroid or a fragment of a comet, exploding roughly 5 miles above the Earth's surface with the force of a multi-megaton bomb. But for a world without satellites or global science networks, the truth was elusive. The explosion occurred in a sparsely populated area, and the political turmoil in Russia at the time delayed any official investigation. In that information vacuum, doomsday prophets and esoteric groups rushed in. Mystics declared it was the wrath of God punishing a sinful world. Others saw it as a warning shot, a near miss from a celestial bullet that proved our planet was vulnerable. Some even speculated it was the result of a failed experiment by the brilliant inventor Nikola Tesla, who had been attempting to transmit electrical power wirelessly across the globe. The event became a powerful, tangible symbol for every apocalyptic fear. Here was a catastrophe that came without warning from the one place humanity had always looked to for order, the sky. It demonstrated that the cosmos was not just a source of gentle guidance or distant omens, but could deliver unimaginable, instantaneous violence. The flattened forest was not a coded message to be interpreted by priests, but a stark, physical prophecy of our planet's fragility in a chaotic solar system. How many other such events, we are left to wonder, have shaped human history in our deep past, their true nature lost to time and remembered only as the day the sky fell? The sky itself seemed to obey a human command in the biblical account from the book of Joshua. As the Israelites fought the Amorites at Gibeon, their leader cried out to God, and the scripture records a stunning event. The sun and moon stood still in the midst of heaven for about a whole day. This was more than a miracle. It was a celestial prophecy of victory made manifest, a divine suspension of the cosmic clock to ensure a battle was won. Modern scholars have long wrestled with this passage, searching for a natural event that could have inspired such a powerful story. One compelling theory points to a rare annular eclipse where the moon passes directly in front of the sun but does not completely cover it, creating a dramatic ring of fire in the sky. If such an eclipse occurred during the battle, the sudden, unexpected darkening and the appearance of the sun as a stationary, blazing ring could have been interpreted as the sun pausing in its path. The Hebrew words used can also be translated as the sun stopped shining, which aligns perfectly with the effect of a solar eclipse. Another fascinating explanation involves an unusual atmospheric refraction event. Under very specific conditions, layers of the atmosphere can act like a lens, bending the light of the sun and moon in such a way that they appear to hang motionless in the sky for a prolonged period. To an army locked in combat, watching the celestial bodies seemingly freeze in place, this would have been a shocking and undeniable sign of divine intervention. Whether a miraculous event or an extraordinary natural phenomenon interpreted through faith, the story's power is undeniable. It represents the ultimate fusion of celestial observation and divine prophecy, where the very machinery of the heavens was seen to bend to the will of a prophet, ensuring a pivotal victory that would shape a nation's destiny. This tale forces us to consider how our ancestors perceived the line between the natural world and the supernatural, finding in the sky not just predictable patterns but direct answers to their most desperate prayers. A vivid emerald streak cuts through the blackness of space, a jeweled visitor that has sparked both wonder and terror for centuries. These green comets, from the recent brilliance of Comet Leonard to the much-anticipated Comet Ison, carry a unique aura among celestial travelers. Their distinct color comes from a simple yet volatile molecule, diatomic carbon. As the comet approaches the Sun, solar radiation excites these carbon pairs in its coma, the gaseous envelope around its nucleus, causing them to emit that unmistakable, eerie green glow. It is a beautiful and predictable chemical reaction, but for our ancestors, it was a message painted in a color of profound symbolism. The folklore surrounding these emerald messengers is a study in stark contradiction. In many European traditions, a green comet was a harbinger of plague and pestilence, its sickly hue seen as a celestial miasma, a poison in the sky that would soon seep down to the earth. Its appearance was thought to foreshadow the death of kings and the collapse of empires, a luminous omen of decay. Yet, in other cultures, that very same green was the color of life, renewal, and hope. Just as the first green shoots break through the thawing earth in spring, a green comet could signal a time of rebirth and fertile new beginnings after a period of hardship. It was a promise of growth written in the stars, a sign that the universe was about to refresh itself. This duality captures the very essence of how we interpret celestial prophecy. The same objective phenomenon, a glowing ball of ice and gas, becomes either a symbol of doom or a promise of salvation based entirely on the lens of the observer. The green light is simply diatomic carbon doing what physics demands, but we cannot help but imbue it with our deepest fears and our most fervent hopes, watching as these emerald messengers silently write their ambiguous prophecies across the night. This slow, celestial wobble governs the grandest prophecy of them all. For ancient astronomers, the cosmos was not just a nightly spectacle but a colossal clock, and its slowest, most majestic hand points to a cycle spanning 26,000 years. This is the great year, a complete revolution governed by the precession of the equinoxes. Imagine a spinning top as it begins to slow down, its axis tracing a slow, graceful circle. Our own planet does the very same thing, its axis wobbling over this immense timescale. This gradual shift changes which constellation the Sun appears to rise in on the spring equinox, moving backward through the zodiac at a rate of about 1 degree every 72 years. A full cycle through all 12 constellations takes that entire 26,000-year period. This was not seen as mere mechanics, but as the fundamental pulse of cosmic time, the breath of the universe itself. Across different cultures, this grand cycle was divided into world ages, each with its own spiritual character and its own prophecy for humanity's evolution. The ancient Vedic texts of India describe 4 yugas or ages that make up a single cycle. We are currently in the Kali Yuga, an age of conflict and spiritual darkness, but the scriptures prophesy that this will be followed by a gradual return to a golden age of truth and enlightenment, the Satya Yuga, as the wheel of the great year continues its turn. In the West, this same astronomical reality fuels the enduring prophecy of the dawning age of Aquarius. For the last 2,000 years, the spring equinox sun has been rising in the constellation Pisces, an age often associated with faith and belief systems. As the precession slowly shifts the equinox point into the constellation of Aquarius, many anticipate a new era defined by innovation, communication, and collective consciousness. This is not a prophecy of a single event, but of a gradual transformation of the human spirit, aligned with the slow, inexorable turning of the celestial spheres. The Great Year is the ultimate cosmic calendar, a prophecy written not in a book or on a tablet, but in the very tilt and tremor of our world, reminding us that we are all part of a story whose chapters unfold over millennia. This ancient concept of a great year now pulses through our modern spiritual landscape, reimagined for a digital age. The prophecy of the age of Aquarius, in particular, has escaped the confines of esoteric texts to become a mainstream cultural touchstone. You hear it in song lyrics, you find it in wellness blogs, and it underpins a significant portion of contemporary New Age thought. The core idea is that as the spring equinox slowly transitions from Pisces into Aquarius, humanity itself is undergoing a parallel spiritual evolution. This is not a prophecy of a single cataclysm, but of a gradual awakening, a shift from hierarchical religious structures toward a new era of global connection, intuitive wisdom, and technological harmony. Why does this grand 26,000-year cycle hold such enduring power? It offers a cosmic validation for our personal and collective struggles. The challenges of our time, from social upheaval to environmental crises, can feel less random and frightening when framed as the necessary growing pains of an entire species transitioning into a new cosmic season. It transforms anxiety into anticipation, suggesting we are all participants in a majestic, predetermined story of human ascent. Modern astrology leans heavily into this framework, with practitioners analyzing how the slow precession of the equinoxes influences generational archetypes and collective consciousness. The lingering energy of the Piscean age is seen in the institutions and belief systems we are now questioning, while the dawning Aquarian energy fuels our drive for innovation, social justice, and a more unified planetary vision. This is celestial prophecy stripped of kings and comets and applied directly to the human spirit. It answers a profound, modern need to believe that our lives are not just a flicker in a meaningless universe, but part of a vast, intelligible pattern. The real draw is the promise that the stars are not just distant suns, but a map of our own potential, a celestial clock counting down not to an end, but to a new beginning for us all. These 25 tales of celestial prophecy form an incredible human chronicle, written in starlight and shadow. From Babylonian clay to the Dogon plains, from the blood moon tetrads to the ticking of Prague's great clock, we have traced a single, unbroken thread, the universal human desire to find meaning and pattern in the vast, silent cosmos. Our ancestors looked up and saw a story written just for them, a celestial guidebook for kings, a warning for emperors, and a promise of salvation for the faithful. That same yearning still pulls our gaze upward today, whether we are searching for scientific truth or spiritual solace. So we are left with one final, haunting question to ponder under the night sky. Are these prophecies glimpses of a divine plan, remarkable coincidences strung across the centuries, or simply a reflection of our own deepest hopes and fears projected onto the blank canvas of the stars? The answer may be different for every one of us. We would love to hear which of these celestial mysteries captured your imagination the most. Share your favorite story or your own thoughts in the comments below. And if you are eager for more journeys into the unknown, be sure to subscribe for our next exploration. The universe is full of stories waiting to be told.